Be your incredible, authentic self. Tell your story because your story could be someone else's light.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Are you feeling like life has suddenly thrown you into the unknown, leaving you with a lack of courage and purpose? For what many women, like my next guest, Heather Pettey, midlife transitions can be lonely, chaotic, and filled with questions about what's next. But what if you can reconnect with your purpose and truly thrive? In this episode, you will learn how to reframe your mindset during difficult times to find strength and clarity, why midlife is a perfect time to pursue big ambitions, and how to do it without fear of judgment or self-doubt, and learn practical tips on setting boundaries and focusing on your own needs, even when you're used to putting others first. So if you're ready to start putting yourself back on the priority list, tune into this episode for guidance, inspiration, and the motivation you need to make midlife your best chapter yet. And don't forget to stay till the end for the key takeaways. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast for women in transition in their careers and life. I interview incredible women for this podcast who share their stories of reinvention and who will give you their advice on how to overcome the obstacles in your way to reach your vision for yourself in your next stage of life. This week, I'm excited to have on the show the wonderful Heather Pettey. Heather is a perfectly imperfect wife to David, mom to 4 amazing humans, and she is a certified professional coach, and she is dubbed the Queen of Self-Development. She's passionate about encouraging women to remain sane and find joy in midlife. The laughter and support happens weekly on Heather's podcast, The Life Coach BFF Show, which I had the pleasure to be on. And when she's not podcasting or speaking, Heather is coaching women to live confidently, set clear boundaries, and find their purpose. She's also a huge advocate for children in foster care and supporter adoption. Heather has made appearances on CNN headline news and other media. She believes that life is a long line of lessons, and in her opinion, it's all about faith and good old common sense. So Heather also happily resides with her family in Memphis, Tennessee. It's so wonderful to have you here, Heather. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And your voice is so calming. I'm just sitting here. I mean, it is so soothing. I cannot tell you. I need for you to read a book. Could you read a book for me on Audible and just, I could go to sleep at night, just relax.
Hey, that's a good idea. That might be another thing I could do, right? Add it to the list of things.
Yes, you have
much.
the best voice. You really do. But thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here today.
Well, I love it because we seem to hit it off instantly, and so just being on your podcast as well, it was wonderful and fun. So I'm glad to get into your life story as well.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see once we
as
get
much
in.
As we
you may
can.
go,
yeah,
you may go, whoa.
Oh wow! So Heather, I shared a little bit in the introduction that this podcast is called the Midlife Reinvention. and you yourself experienced major midlife transition, which led you kind of, I believe, to the journey you're on right now. And so, could you describe what happened? There's, I think, a time of upheaval in your life, I would say, and in your family, and what were the transitions that kind of led you to where you are now?
Yes, yes. I'll be happy to share. And I believe that this is my thought on upheaval and transition. They all look different for all of us. Like my upheaval may look totally different than yours. And you may think, "Oh, that's not a big deal. What did she get all upset about?" And I may feel the same about yours. It's all relative is what I'm trying to say. But I believe that when we go through a time of trials or a situation that's not so comfortable, that once I call that our fire. A
Hmm.
friend of mine sent me this picture one day, and it was so cute because it was pouring down raining, but they were trying to grill out. And so she had put an umbrella up over the grill. So picture this. Here's this umbrella attached to the grill. It's pouring down raining and they have their steaks on the grill.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? That is how I have felt the last few years. I have felt like that I'm building this fire in the rain. And I believe that when we go through a fire, that we need to bring the water back to those who are in the fire. So once we've gone through it, we need to reach back and help the people who are going through a similar situation or season in their life. And for me, this season just kind of came out of nowhere. Honestly, my husband, we have built this beautiful life in his hometown. He's a dentist. He had built this clinic, this big
Mhm.
practice, and we had built a home out on a farm, horses,
Wow.
donkey.
Sounds beautiful.
It was
Donkeys.
lovely.
You had donkeys?
Barn cats, dogs, the whole nine yards. I just loved it. I really loved it. And one of my best friends lived about a half a mile down the road on this old country road. Very
Mhm.
few homes. So, and she was on a horse farm. So, long story short, he comes home one day and he says, "I have lived in this town my whole life. It's a great place to be." He loves the town, but I want to do something different. So, basically, he went through menopause, I think, before I did. I'm sure he would love it if he heard me say that. You know, he would. But anyway, he said, "I want something different for our family. He had never lived in a place the size of Memphis. And he said, basically, he wanted a new adventure.
Right.
That's what it boiled down to. But I was devastated because we had built this life, like I said. So we moved about 3.5 hours from friends and family.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, it was the loneliest time of my life. And when I say that, when I say I was really lonely, going in the closet crying lonely, see,
Mm.
your facial expression just changed.
Mhm.
Every woman, if I say that, their facial expression changes. And the reason is that because we can all identify with that at some point in our lives.
Yes.
We have all been there. We've all felt this. So when I recognize, I'm balancing all these emotions. I'm balancing my emotions. I have two in elementary school at the time. I have one in college, one in high school. The older two are girls, younger two boys. So, I mean, this is a town that the older two, they didn't know any different. I mean, this was their home.
Yes.
So I had to manage this while my husband is off with a new career. I am left unpacking boxes, managing emotions, and trying to find the grocery store.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the week after we moved there, one of the kids broke out in a rash. Well, I don't know where to take them.
Mhm.
I don't know a doctor.
Yeah.
These things that you don't think about when you're moving, you don't
Yes.
consider these situations. The kids go to school, they meet friends, they want to spend the night. Well, I don't know these families.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it was very, very, very stressful. I mean, I could say the word very 15 times. It was extremely stressful. And our oldest daughter was in college at Ole Miss at the time. She brought a friend home and they were talking about a podcast. I had no idea what a podcast was. I said, "How do you listen to a podcast?" She explained it to me. I looked it up and I started listening to this lady from Texas.
Yes.
Southern accent, familiar, talking about a subject that was unrelatable to me. It's all about being a slob. The title was A Slob Comes Clean. And I'm not a slob, but I mean, I felt
Okay.
like, let's get that clear. I'm not a slob, but I felt like I had this friend with me all the time
Yeah.
because my friends from home couldn't stay on the phone with me nonstop. So I would listen to her on the way back from taking the kids to school. I would put my earbuds in at night when I was going to sleep, and it was just comforting to me.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with my friend that lived down the street in our small town. And I said, and she's a retired psychiatrist. I said, if I could be the person that this lady, this podcaster has been to me, to just one person, it
Mm.
would be worth recording conversations and starting a podcast.
Oh, wonderful.
Because when I thought back in my life, the times that I was the happiest was when I was serving others.
Hmm.
And so I had to reach back and think, because our subconscious mind, there are all these studies on the subconscious mind, and it's psycho-cybernetics. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but I've really studied this. And the subconscious mind is not actually subconscious.
Mm.
You know that?
Yes, yes. But I haven't heard the term, but I know what you're saying because it becomes almost part of your thinking, right? It's it,
Yes, yes.
it's subconscious, but it becomes part of your way of life almost. Yes.
Yes, your brain is always seeking balance.
Yeah.
And so when you move to a new place or you have a new experience that's unsettling, your brain goes into overtime. Your vagus nerve starts working into overtime. It's trying to find that balance. It's
Mm-hmm.
always seeking pleasure and enjoyment. And so when you're not there, your brain is in constant motion trying to find that. And so you have learned programming with your subconscious mind, and that's what you put into it. And so when you have these thought patterns where it's on a loop, like for me during that time, I would think, oh, well, if only I was sitting on my porch watching the horse, playing with the kids in the pasture, or walking on this country road with my friend. Those thoughts would be on a loop. I
Yeah.
would wish for that and wish for that. And I had to go in and I had to reprogram my subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind acts as a computer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It
Yes.
takes in what your surroundings and your environment and your influences, your parents,
Mm-hmm.
your religion that you've been exposed to. All these things are feeding that computer, your subconscious mind, your brain.
Whatever you input into the computer really is the output that's going to come out, right? So
Yes.
if you continue feeding your brain the same narrative that you've been used to, and then it just becomes it becomes like call it the gremlin or whatever. It sticks to you, and
It
right,
does.
unless you reprogram it, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started studying, I started taking all these courses. And Mark Twain, I don't know if you've ever heard this famous line by Mark Twain, but he said, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why.
Yeah. Yes. And so
And so
you found your
I'm
why.
sorry.
You found your why.
Yes, I found my why. I
Yeah.
found my why, but I had to build the fire in the rain.
Yes. I love that analogy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had to build the fire in the rain. So the other day, Kavita, I was cleaning out some pictures in a drawer and I came across this picture. And I wish I had it with me to show you right now, but it's from about 7 years ago. And my husband, it's Easter Sunday.
Hmm?
We are in front of these beautiful flowers, and he takes me and he dips me backwards, and I'm looking up at him and he's looking at me, and we're both smiling, and I'm holding on to his forearms.
Yeah.
And the more I studied the picture, I went, I am holding on for dear life in this picture.
Mhm.
I have clients all the time that'll say, I'm hanging by a thread.
Mhm.
When I looked at that picture, I thought, Heather, you were hanging by a thread.
Mhm.
And sometimes you look at pictures of times in your life and I'm smiling. It's like a friend of mine saw an interview of me talking about crying in the closet, being lonely. And she goes, but you're always smiling. Every time I see you, I see you at different social functions and gatherings and you're smiling. But we do that. We do that.
Yeah. We put a Band-Aid on or a face on, and we don't often expose what we're really feeling. I wanted to go back to, Heather, what you were saying about when you were in this phase, when you moved and
Uh-huh.
then you were looking after the kids and you were unpacking boxes and you were lonely. And that's what we do as women, right? We look after everyone ahead, we look after everybody else with ourselves kind of at the last, right? So I guess, and we all feel, a lot of women feel this kind of upheaval that you went through, that I went through in a different way. Like you said, I love it. We all have our own upheavals. You decided to do something about it, which I think is incredible. Like you, you said that the happiest time in your life is when you were serving people and when you decided to serve others. And that's what you're doing now. So my question to you is, you were going through this upheaval yourself, and then amongst it, you decided to launch a podcast. You became a coach. Yeah, now you're helping other women go through the same thing. So I have so many clients who want to do things like that, but they're just so afraid. And my question to you is, where did you find that courage to just do it?
Well, I mean, you have to remember the podcast I started with my friend originally.
Yeah.
That's a retired psychiatrist. I started that with her. So I wasn't alone, but I do have to tell you this because this is kind of funny. So I took this podcasting course from a lady out in New Mexico.
Mhm.
And she looked at my podcast and she goes, your podcast is fantastic, but your name is not on it. Why is your name not on it?
Mhm.
And so originally we were recording these podcast episodes, but the fear of judgment was so great
Mhm.
that we did not put our names on the podcast.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think we do that a lot as women. We have these things that we want to do, but we're so afraid of what people will think.
Mhm.
We're afraid of what our families will think, what our neighbors will think, what our friends will think. And we that keeps us stuck in a little box.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
what we did. We wanted to do it, but we were afraid of what people would think. So we're like, we'll just put it out there. We won't put our names on it. And no one will ever know that this is us. That's what's so funny about the whole thing.
It's so funny you say that, Heather, because when I had started, I was the same because I went from corporate to entrepreneurship and coaching and podcasting. And I was like, people are going to find me out like I'm an imposter and I don't know what they're going to think. Everyone's going to think I'm like an idiot. What am I doing? So I really hid behind, I didn't put my name out either. It was so interesting you say that. It reminds me of the first few years, right? And
Yeah.
I was hiding behind, no, I put push other people forward, which I love to do, but it's like I didn't have my face or my name. I never went on videos. I never did any of that. And then I just like you, I was like, they were like, you are the brand, or you are, people need to know who
Yeah.
you are. You need to understand who you are. So I completely, and it's true. It's those things that keep us in our box, right? Those fear of judgment, fear of
Yes.
failure, all of that. And so I guess in your practice, in your coaching and in throughout your podcast, what kind of challenges other than fear of judgment a lot did you face? And what do you find, what would you tell women like who are facing these fears? Like what should they do? How do they overcome these things?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, and I've never had anyone ask me this question, but the more I got into podcasting, I would have people who are relatively well known that would want to come on the show, promote their books or in some cases, television shows. And they would say to me, I would almost make excuses. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have a big following on social media, that I'm not going to be able to promote you as well as I would like. And they would all say to me, you are just getting started.
Mhm.
Don't apologize. And one lady at school, I'll never forget this. I said, will you please go and follow me on Instagram? I've got this lady coming on. I'm trying to get some more followers because I'm kind of embarrassed. And she goes, you're better than that. You are
Mm.
better than that. Do not be intimidated by all these fabulous people that you are meeting. You are better than that. And I thought, wow, she is so right. We all need to be better than that.
Mhm.
And I tell my kids that when things come up, I'll go, you're better than that,
Mhm.
because we are. We need to hold our heads high. We have been through a lot as midlife women. We have
Mhm.
been through a lot. We have more skills than we even realize just by living.
Mhm.
I mean, we should be proud. Marianne Williamson, I don't know if you're familiar with that author, but she says
Yeah.
midlife is not a crisis. It's a time of rebirth. It's not a time to accept your death, which I've had friends who turned 50 and thought, well, I just thought this is such a sad time because now I'm going to die. At 50, they're thinking these crazy things, but it's a time to accept our life and to finally, truly live it.
Mhm.
And I believe that
Oh, yeah.
life is meant to be lived. We don't need to let anything hold us back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've talked about this is that I always say, it's not a crisis. And there's several,
Mhm.
it's been proven it's not a crisis phase. And I say it's an opportunity. And I love that. I fully agree with that, especially as midlife women. Not only do we have the skills that we've accumulated over the years, like all kinds of skills, like whether you're working or whether you're working from home or whether you're a mom or whatever it is, the skills that we have accumulated, but also the life experience and the wisdom and,
Yes.
and just the common sense, I would say, to you
Yes.
can't, that's just innate in us. So I also, I start with my clients by asking them to write down their greatest accomplishments, big or small. Like, what are you most proud of? And that gives you the confidence to realize that you can do this, right? So I love that.
And there's no failure. We
Yeah.
either win or we lose. We don't fail, because I mean there are things that I've tried that were just they just didn't go well, Kavita. They just didn't, but I learned so incredibly much. And so I tell women, don't be afraid to try.
Yeah.
Just don't ever. That's what Brene Brown, I don't know if you're
Yes.
familiar with her work,
Yes.
but this really helped me a lot. I saw a video clip of her and she said, unless you are out in the arena getting your ass kicked to, basically, I don't want to hear from you.
Yes.
And that I feel I finally made the turn, because of course there are people that are going to say, who does she think she is?
Yes.
What does she think she's doing? And that's my thought on it now. Unless you're out here with me, because no one who is doing what you're doing or has done more than you is ever going to judge you.
Yeah.
It's people who are sitting around watching, too afraid to do anything themselves.
Exactly. That is so true. It's easy to
Yeah.
judge people, but if you actually haven't done it yourself, then you have no idea. You have no idea what the person is going through. Or I love that. If you don't take the risks, then you're not gonna learn. You're not gonna get better. You're not gonna move to the next level. And then I always say we talk about the mountain in front of us, and we get all overwhelmed with the big huge mountain in front of us. But it's just like you got to take the step. You got to get your boots, strap your boots on, and get dirty, and go up even the first level of the mountain, and then
Yeah.
you'll see the different views. Otherwise, if you just stay at the bottom, it's going to be the same views, right?
Right. If you
Yeah.
don't try, you won't know.
Yeah, yeah,
You
exactly.
won't ever know.
Yeah. So I was going through your website, Heather, and I love this. You had a little quote and it said, being an adult is like folding a fitted sheet. No one really knows how. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. How many times I've tried to fold a fitted sheet? I don't know anybody that knows how to do that. So I guess I was based on that. What are some of the ways that you help women, or what are some of the tools you use to actually help women like fold their fitted sheet, if you would, or go through this midlife stage that can be really quite overwhelming? sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's just like you said, no one really knows how. They
Yeah.
don't. No one knows how to go through midlife. And we're all doing the best that we can do. But there are some tools that I work through with ladies. And one of them is I was at a Memphis Grizzly. I don't know if you're familiar with NBA basketball, but I was at a camp that my boys were attending, and some of the NBA players came out and they were giving this little speech. And they said to probably 150 kids, I want you to go and dream wild, crazy, big dreams.
Mm.
And I thought, how wonderful to instill this into these kids.
Hmm.
But I feel that way about midlife. Like, this is our time to dream is not over. We need to go and we need to dream these wild, crazy, big dreams. We need to write them down. We need to say them out loud. I'm a huge believer in this. And the Bible says that words are powerful, that you need to say them out loud. Words are powerful, and that death and life are in the power of the tongue. That's in Proverbs 18:21. And I mean, I have had things that I have written down that I never, if you had told me 10 years ago that they would come true, I would have never believed you. I mean, just, and even, not even like huge dreams like what I'm talking about, but we were looking for a home. And I told my husband, I said, we're going to talk about exactly what we want in a new home. One thing that he wanted was a screen porch
Yeah.
that overlooked the pool with a background of trees.
Hmm.
That was his thing. I had cut out a picture of a family room with this huge stone fireplace and these windows looking out over the screen porch and the trees. Kavita, I promise you that's exactly what we have.
Hmm. Yeah.
We had never seen this house. That
I
is
have,
exactly what we have.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. And what that is that visioning. When you
Yeah.
visualize something, the neurons in your brain actually start creating those networks that actually cause that to happen.
Yes, they will
Yeah.
seek. Your
Yeah.
brain will seek
Yes.
that, what
Yeah.
you visualize.
Yeah.
And so that's my number one thing is it's time, because they think I'm wrapping it up. I'm like, no, you're not wrapping it up. You're
Yeah.
just getting cranked up. And
Yes.
we're going to dream these big dreams. We're going to write them down. We're going to look at them every day. We're going to say them out loud. We're going to share them with friends and family. And that's what we're going to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we all have points of friction in our life. We all do. I don't care who you are. You have points of friction. You may not want to talk about some of them, but we all have them. And I like to identify those points of friction
Hmm.
and make a plan on how we're going to handle them. The
Yes.
people in your life that stress you out, how are you going to handle these people when you come in contact with them?
Hmm.
Make a plan ahead of time. Don't wait until you get there. Know
Yes.
exactly how you're going to handle them.
Wonderful.
And that alleviates so much stress, because as women in midlife, we've got these hormones that are out of control a lot of times,
Hmm.
and our thought patterns
Hmm.
shift a great deal depending on what time of the day, the month, the year.
Yeah.
They just do. So we've got to have a plan. If
Yeah.
we want to, we got a plan to win,
Yeah.
or we're
Wonderful.
planning to lose, like you and I have talked about with Zig Ziglar. So we
Yeah.
always plan to win. And another thing that I tell ladies too is prioritize time management. That is huge. I know that you are really good at that, I feel like.
I try. It's not always easy. I've recently have become more aware of that. And I talk a little bit about ease and flow.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we feel overwhelmed, as all of us do, why are we overwhelmed? And what is it that is really going to move the needle? And what is it going to give me ease and flow? So I try.
Yeah.
I try. I'm not no one's perfect on that, but I'm trying my best. Yes. So
Perfectly imperfect.
yes, exactly. Those are great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so
dream wild, crazy dreams. Understand your points of friction, and then prioritize time management.
Yeah, and I have two more. And get your hormones checked. See your
Mhm.
gynecologist, get your hormones checked, make a plan for that. If
Yeah.
that's a possibility for you, that is a game changer.
Hmm.
It is a game changer. And there are alternatives. I'm not going to go into that to hormone replacement therapy. There are some
Yeah.
alternatives, but take care of that part of your life. Don't put that on the back burner. It is so important. That
Oh,
controls your energy level, your sex drive, your sleep. All three of those things are important. And a lot of those, one of those, a lot of ladies want to give up in midlife. Don't do it.
mm. Do women come to you and they don't recognize that their hormones are actually playing a
Yes.
role? Really?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah.
Crying, outbursts for no reason.
Yes.
We go through all of that. And so you don't have to live like that. Go
Hmm.
see your gynecologist. So that's one of them. And the last thing is exercise. I tell ladies, walk, 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 and then walk some more.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Dr. Tim White, I spent an hour with him on a Zoom on Friday. He is a world renowned neurosurgeon and anti-aging specialist. And he says, lift heavy weights.
Yep. It's so
Heavy
funny.
weights.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that because I think I've had I don't know how many specialists on about wellness, health and wellness, and longevity, and it's
Yeah.
movement, walking, and heavy weights and protein. I would add also
Yeah, and protein.
adding
Fish oil, protein,
Yeah.
and something that you and I are doing right now is you have got to have supportive social connections.
Hmm. Hmm.
You have got to maintain social connections because I met with a lady the other day. Her son has married. There's some issues with the daughter-in-law. A lot of times we're prone to want to hold all these problems and stresses inside. And
Hmm.
we're not created to carry the heaviness of life alone.
No,
We
it's so
just
funny.
weren't.
No, I just spent a weekend with 12 girlfriends at a cottage in North Ontario by the lake. And I'm
Oh,
telling you, that is so therapeutic. I mean, it's fun, but it's also like you can talk. I mean, it's whatever social support you can find. And I just had a call with a client just this morning, and she's just feeling very lonely because she's been at home during COVID. She works from home, and the source of her all of that is because she doesn't have those connections. And so I encourage her, like, go to the gym, go meet people, join a club, do something. It's so important. So that's
yeah,
very.
and we have to talk about it because a lot of people feel shame
Mm-hmm.
over these issues. They keep it inside. We have got to talk about all this. And
Yes.
you'll find that once you start talking about it, something that seems so terrible a lot of times becomes very humorous.
Yes.
When you
Well,
see the look on the other person's face, I mean, it becomes very humorous and
yeah,
you can change that input into your
yeah,
subconscious mind. That's
yeah.
what we have to do. We have to reprogram, constantly reprogram.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if I was in Memphis or you were in Toronto, we'd probably be really fast friends because it's.
We would be having lunch right after this.
I know.
What do you mean, probably? We would be
We
at lunch
would,
in about
yeah.
20 minutes.
I would be like, all right. I love that. So, Heather, I think this is before, I'm not sure when exactly, but you wrote a book that is called Keep It Simple, Sarah. So,
Yes.
a little bit about that. I was curious to know more about how that fits into your life and what the main messages are in the book.
Okay. Well, this is such a good story, but I'm going to give you the shortened version.
Yes.
A friend of my son's mother came by to pick her child up after a get together. And we were talking, and I moved here from a very small town, like I mentioned earlier. And I said to her, I'm just a small town girl looking for community. And she said, you need to write a book and you need to put that line in the book. And she left. And that afternoon, she sent me flowers. And on the card, it said, this big city needs more small town people like you.
Oh,
And Kavita, I cried. I
oh,
just cried, cried, cried. And it was just so touching. Well, that night I got into the bathtub and I had been sick with a respiratory infection all summer. And I just prayed. I was like, you know what, Lord, I have had so many people tell me that I needed to write a book. And if you really want me to write a book, you're going to have to do this because I am depleted. I have been running these boys around all summer. I'm trying to keep up and I just felt terrible. And immediately, when I tell you, all the pages of this book flooded my brain. I
Wow.
got out of the bathtub, wrapped a towel around me, walked right into my study, filled my whole desk with sticky notes. And those are the pages of this book.
Oh my God.
So this is modern day advice and your grandmother's wisdom all rolled into one book. And so what I did was I took what I noticed my daughters are older to look up and they're scrolling, scrolling, scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
And when I designed the pages of the book, it's full color. I thought, how could I capture their attention? So I designed it in a more of an Instagram type format. But I
Wow.
have to tell you, I finished the book, Kavita. This is so wild. And a friend of mine called an author friend and she said, what have you been doing? I said, I'm just finishing up this book. She said, I didn't know you were writing a book. What are you going to do for your launch party? And I said, I don't know anything about a launch party. And she goes, well, how are you going to market your book? I want to be on your launch team. And she said, when I wrote my book, we had launch parties all over the country. I had all these sugar cookies sent out and with the book cover on the cookies. And I mean, I just sat there and my faith, as you can tell, plays a huge part in my life. And I just prayed and I said, okay, Lord, this is your book. You wrote this book. Now, you're going to have to market it because I don't know anything. I'd never written a book. I don't know how
Yeah.
to market a book. Well, CNN jumped in and said, we want to do a segment on your book. So they did a full segment, sent it to Amazon, bestseller, and #1 new release. I cannot make this up.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. And
Uh-huh.
so that's how this book came about, literally. And I just say it's not really my book. I really feel like God wrote this book. He gave me the pages, he gave me the words. And it's after the fact, I looked at it and I said, this is really a love letter to my children because these are all the things that if I died tomorrow,
Mhm.
these are the things that I would want them to know.
Oh,
But I've had moms that are just boy moms buy this book. I've had grown women buy this book for themselves that don't have children at home.
mm-hmm.
And it's just, like I said, sometimes we need to go back to the basics, and
Yeah.
sometimes new ways of thinking are not the best ways. And that's what this book is all about.
Wow. I just, your passion and your faith comes through so loud and clear in that story. And congratulations. That's, well,
Thank
not
you.
you not only acted on that impulse, but you did it. And like, you just like, again, it's that courage that I see through everything that you seem to do. It just shines through. It's like, you don't hesitate. And it's
Well,
remarkable. I
you
feel that.
can't hesitate. That's the thing. Like when because you have these things all the time. We all do. Your listeners have things happen all the time that we just don't always act on them.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, talking about faith, when I was going through such a terrible time and so sad to leave my friends, my family, I felt so alone. I really did. I sat down and I prayed and I just said, Lord, I want you to use me.
Mhm.
Just use me. And everything changed. But this is the thing when you ask God to use you, you better buckle up because you will not believe the things that will happen. And I
Mhm.
tell everybody that.
Mhm.
But it's just everybody wants to be happy. You hear people say, I just want to be happy, or I just want my kids to be happy. We're not going to be happy all the time. We're
No.
just not. But we've got to keep that joy inside. And so even though I wasn't happy when we originally moved, I still had joy. Like I
Mm.
had joy in my faith and joy in my love for other people and my eagerness to serve. And so if we keep that there,
Yeah.
just know that you're not always going to be happy,
Oh,
but
well,
you got to keep the joy.
you've got to listen to your inner voice and your inner God or whatever it is that you have faith in, whoever it is.
Right.
And you should ultimately have faith in yourself that it can be done. And
Yes. Believe in
listen.
yourself.
Yeah, and listen to those voices or that impulse to do something. Because if you don't, then life it'll pass by and you're like, I should have done that.
Oh.
I
And
really
I
should have
don't
done that.
ever want to have that, Kavita.
No,
I do not
no,
want to have a
neither do
day in
I.
my life of should haves.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I got a lot of like shivers in some of the things that the stories that you've shared. So it's so wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us what you're doing now. Is there anything special going on that we need to know about, the listeners want to hear about? How can we learn more about what you do? Where all the good stuff, the links and
Right, right. Well, you can find me over on Instagram. It's Heather Pettey, Pettey_. I'm on Facebook, Heather Pettey 1. And as I mentioned earlier, my business partner and I have a private Facebook group. It's our Midlife Moxie. Lots of good information about changing hormones, midlife there. And we are hosting a retreat. Our first retreat is this spring. It's off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina in April. And you can go to ourmidlifemoxie.com and hear more about the retreat. We have just a few spots left open, but we have rented a mansion. Kavita, I would love for you to come.
wow,
I would
nice.
love for you to come. We have a private chef. Everyone is getting a massage. We've already hired the masseuse team for that. And everyone has a private bedroom because as midlife women, we don't want to sleep in bunk beds with three other women. So everyone has their own private room. It's going to be a wonderful time. And that is April of 2025.
Okay. I would love, my niece is getting married in April in Mexico. So I'm not sure I would have loved, I love Charleston actually.
Ah,
Yeah, but that would, well, maybe the dates might work. What are the dates? Do you have them?
I have them on the website. I can look it up if you
Okay.
want to.
Well, that's okay. I can, well, we'll have the links, right? And
Okay,
send
we'll
me the
have the
link
link. I'll
and then
send those
maybe,
to you. And it's
yeah.
at the beach. It's a beach retreat.
Oh, beautiful. That
Yeah.
sounds amazing. Wow, so much going on. That's great. So yeah, we'll have all of those links on our show notes. And if anybody wants to learn more, and please listen to Heather's wonderful podcast as well. And you also said Midlife Moxie as well. There's two of them, right? Oh, that's not a podcast.
Well, it's
Okay.
just one podcast. Life
Yeah.
Coach BFF Show is the
And then
podcast.
and
And
the
so
Facebook group is Midlife Moxie. Yes.
Midlife Moxie, and it says navigating seasons of transition. There's several Midlife Moxies, but
Wonderful.
ours is that one. It's purple and pink, I think.
Okay.
Living on the edge,
Yeah.
Kavita, living on the edge.
And I hear that your daughter just got engaged too. So congratulations for that. So there's a lot of exciting things coming up for your family as well, right? So
Thank you. Lots of excitement at our house.
yes,
Lots.
yes,
Yeah,
wonderful. So thank you so much for being on the show. Maybe just one last kind of comment you want to make to the listeners based on our conversation.
sure, sure. Definitely. One thing that I want to say is be yourself. Don't be anybody but you. Be your incredible, authentic self. Tell your story because your story could be someone else's light.
Love it. Love it. So great. So great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation and all the best to you. And yeah, we'll have the links in the show notes and good luck and have a great retreat too. That sounds amazing.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you for having me. I have just loved being here with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I trust you enjoyed this lighthearted episode with the wonderful Heather Pettey, and it led you to realize that while midlife transitions can feel like a storm, now is the time to develop your courage and purpose moving forward in life. Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, your challenges can become a light for others. Use your experiences to help those going through similar trials. Number 2, don't let fear of judgment or failure stop you. Start anyway, and you'll realize that people who judge often don't understand your journey. And number 3,
Midlife isn't a time to settle, it's the time to dream wildly. Visualize what you want and take steps to make it happen. Thank you for listening, and remember, if you're going through any challenges such as the ones I discussed today with Heather, you can develop the courage to move through them. You can download my daily confidence guide now with links in the show notes to receive this handy guide, which will follow up with daily tips to help you build your confidence, especially as you are facing career or life transitions. And also remember that I'm here for you, should you need guidance on your particular circumstances, or you just need someone to listen. Book a complimentary breakthrough session with me today. And remember, if not now, when? Till next time, my friend, stay well and stay courageous.